Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's forum with candidates for mayor of Palos Park. Sorry? Okay. I'm your moderator, Cheryl Zod Gallagher, part of the leadership team of the League of Women Voters of the Palos-Orland area. The League of Women Voters is more than 100 years old. We are nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. The League believes that informed and active participation in government is a foundational principle of a strong democracy. We work to empower civic engagement by all people and work to increase understanding of public policy issues through education and advocacy. If you have questions about the League or would like to join, talk to anyone here with an LWV button or check the table outside this room. We are proud to be part of tonight's forum. Tonight's candidate forum will adhere to the following rules. 1, the order in which the candidates will speak and answer questions has been decided by flipping a coin prior to the forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Time will be kept, and time remaining will be visible to the moderator and the candidates. Timers are right here up in the first row. When the allotted time has expired, candidates are allowed to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. Questions have been submitted by the audience as well as online. The questions will be asked of both candidates by me, the moderator. The League has the right to review and select questions for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. 1 question will be presented to each candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond, though it is not mandatory to use the entire 2 minutes. Candidates are allowed to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. Subsequent questions will be addressed to each candidate, alternating which candidate gets to answer first. This rotation also guarantees an equal number of questions to each candidate. Following time allotted for questions, candidates may make their closing statements of 2 minutes. We ask that the audience be respectful of all candidates, refrain from cheering or booing during the forum, and please silence your phones. Any campaign paraphernalia, buttons, backgrounds, banners, etc. are not permitted. No campaign promotion, visual or audio will be permitted. This event is being taped, and participants in the forum agree that copyright ownership of the tapes or transcripts resides with the League of Women Voters. The candidates agree that their organizations, their campaign, their supporters will not use the forum, portions of the forum, or any audio tape, video clips, or transcripts for political advertising or other purposes without written permission from the League of Women Voters. A recording of the forum will be available on our website, www.lwvpalosorland.org. And now it's time to welcome our candidates in the order in which they will be speaking, beginning with Ronette Leal McCarthy and followed by Nicole Milovich Walters. Candidate McCarthy will make your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for coordinating this event. My name is Ronette McCarthy, and I am the candidate for the mayor of Palos Park. Experience does matter, and I am the candidate for mayor. My experience exemplifies why I am the most qualified. As a practicing attorney, I've served as a municipal attorney throughout the Tri-County area. There is no topic in governance of Palos Park that is foreign to me, past or present. I work for the governor's office as the only staff member to a complex, comprehensive code rewrite of the Illinois School Code. Was appointed to serve on the Illinois Department of Public Health Hospice and Palliative Care Committee and rewrite of the Illinois DNR form, now known as POST. I am a private practice attorney who works with businesses, estate plans for families and individuals, and helps families with special needs children. I was a public school teacher for CPS. I hold a master's degree in education and a Juris Doctorate. I'm a Mexican-American mother of 2, wife of 23 years, and a resident of Palos Park. I am a community leader. I serve on the board for the Palos Park Women's Club and initiated the largest growth in membership ever, helping lead the organization from 68 members to 151 members this year. I serve as Vice President of the McCord Gallery and Cultural Center, guest lecturer at the Palos Park Library. I found and manage Palos Area Business Networking Group and Palos Park Neighbors. Neighbors is the largest private community group in the park with over 1,500 members to date. And believe residents come first. Democracy is pretty. Democracy is the power of the people, the voice of the people, the voice of the residents. And democracy will be heard on April 4th when the residents elect Ronette McCarthy, Mayor of Palos Park. Thank you.
Candidate Milovich Walters, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for moderating this event, and thank you to Stagg High School for hosting this event. I am Nicole Milovich Walters, and I want to be your next mayor of Palos Park. I'm a homegrown Palos girl. I went to Palos East, Palos South, and Sandburg High School. My love for Palos was so great, and my life steeped deep in the traditions of Palos Park, that I wanted to raise my family here. My girls attended Montessori, Palos East, Palos South, and then they graduated from right here at Stagg High School. I have more than 20 years of volunteering in District 118 and District 230. After high school, I attended University of Wisconsin-Madison, and then continued my education at John Marshall Law School. And while I was in law school, I started my company. It's a pre-employment screening company, and in 1995 I started that. And presently, I am the president of my company of 13 employees and an attorney. I am a partner in the Walters Law Group, which is a family law practice that I share with my husband, and both businesses are located in Palos Park. Not only have I volunteered for the public schools, I was board member of Palos Orland Conservation Committee for 8 years, member of the Palos Park Women's Club for 11 years, McCord Gallery Annex Committee member, Girl Scout leader for 8 years, and creator of the very popular Autumn in the Park Festival. In 2003, I became a Recreation Advisory Board member, and in 2007 became the Commissioner of Public Works and Recreation, and have been that commissioner for 16 years. In that time, I oversaw a host of successful projects. I've been working knowledge of the Village of Palos Park government functions, kept a balanced budget with more than 50% of the operating funds in reserve, grew an amazing police department, rebuilt our recreation department to create unique opportunities for all ages, and I have worked with legislators, and all of this is why I should be your next mayor of Palos Park. Thank you.
We will alternate, so the first person to answer the question this time will be candidate Milovich Walters. Question is, what do you see as Palos Park's most significant challenges? You have 2 minutes.
Well, we need to advance our progress. Public safety is paramount in Palos Park. We spend half our budget to support mandated training, equipment, and salaries. And then we have a very small budget to deal with. So our Western annexation was very critical to growing our businesses and supporting our tax base. But we want to do all of that keeping with the character of the village. We want to expand the senior club so that seniors are not alone, that they have activities. And we also want to grow our You're Not Alone program, where our police department checks in on residents that live alone. We also need to provide more information about organizations like Pathlights and age options for that community. And biggest thing I'd like to do is to create a community-based organization that will greet new residents, that will share with them the resources about our businesses, our schools, our community events. These volunteers would go to their homes, answer their questions, and ensure that they feel part of the community. Being inclusive is important, and keeping our gem of Palos Park, the pride of the southwest suburbs of Chicago, is paramount to our way of life.
Thank you. McCarthy, same question. What do you see as Palos Park's most significant challenges?
Thank you, Cheryl. We are really blessed to live in such an amazing community known as the Village of Palos Park. The challenges to some may not seem large to people in other communities. One of the largest challenges that has been exhibited to me over the last months, if not weeks, highlighted by community members, is the lack of residents' voices, the lack of being heard, the lack of feeling that you are actually a part of our governance. As I noted in my opening statement, democracy is pretty. Democracy is the voice of our residents, and allowing residents to feel that they are a part of the local municipal government, to me, is one of the most significant challenges that we have. We have 11 boards, 11 committees that are within the Village of Palos Park, everything from zoning to library, recreation, and historic preservation. Currently, 5 of those boards have vacancies. 5 boards should not have vacancies within the Village of Palos Park. The Village of Palos Park residents should feel greeted and welcome when they come to a board meeting. They should not be told that they cannot have a voice, that they cannot talk, as has been exhibited at a few of the board meetings recently, specifically on February 27th. That has been brought up countless times. So in order to advance our village, in order to have it grow, see it into the future, we do need to work together as a community and make sure that democracy is first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to try to, excuse me. We have a lot of questions that we have to get to, so please hold your applause and cheering until the end. The next question will be answered by candidate McCarthy first. What will you do to preserve the present zoning in the newly acquired western sector of the village? And are you committed to preserving 1-acre zoning?
Thank you. First off, I think it's really important for the residents to understand the western expansion, what happened in 2016 to where it sits today. So in 2016, there were 4 specific properties, Ludwig Farms, Mid-Iron, Glen Eagles, and Cog Hill, that were all looked at as being annexed into the Village of Palos Park. Fast forward, after an appellate court battle between the Village of Lamont and the Village of Palos Park, those 4 properties were successfully annexed into the village. I'm not a litigator, but I know that appellate court matters are not inexpensive, and it costs the village a substantial amount of money to take it to that point. Now, fast forward into 2022, we have already lost one of the golf courses. Glen Eagles is no longer part of the Village of Palos Park. It is now part of the Village of Lamont. It is being developed into 400 homes on 200 acres that currently, because it has de-annexed from the Village of Palos Park, the property tax revenue that could have been generated from that property will go to the Village of Lamont. The Western Growth Plan has specifically lays out the number of units per acre. There is up to 12 units per acre in the Western Growth Plan, which my opponent passed and adopted and accepted. On her campaign literature, it says that she supports 1-acre land, but that goes into direct contradiction with the Western Annexation Plan, because it specifically lists in the growth plan up to 12 units per acre. We do have 3 left out there, Ludwig Farms, Mid-Iron, and Cog Hill. We, of course, don't know what will transpire in the future with them either. Thank you.
Candidate Milovich-Walters, same question. What will you do to preserve the present zoning in the newly acquired western sector, and are you committed to preserving 1-acre zoning?
Thank you. One thing we can't make more of is land. And when those 4 properties decided they wanted to annex into Palos Park, they came to us. They wanted to be part of Palos Park. And that was important to us because they understood that they will need to conform to the character of Palos Park and what we expect those properties to look like. 1 acre zoning is important. It is part of what our community has built itself around. However, the reality is only 1/3 of our village is on 1 acre lots or greater. So you probably don't realize that by the way things have been developed. And that is what will happen out west in the next 10 years. Not dense housing. We did not want to keep Glen Eagles when Pulte Homes wanted to build dense townhomes. We decided to let them pay to de-annex, and that way we are staying true to our word, to the character of Palos Park. The long-term plan is most likely to look like a beautiful golf destination with big, beautiful homes around it on large lots, followed by some townhomes possibly, but spread out, lots of green. I come from the conservation world. That's where I started my volunteering. I believe in keeping our trees and open space. Economic development on Bell Road will be developed in the character with the Village of Palos Park to increase our tax base, increase tax revenues, but also to control what is built on our borders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will be for candidate Milovich Walters first. How would you support our police department?
Well, our police department, we have strong relationships with a variety of law enforcement agencies, task forces, and neighboring towns. I support them working with our neighboring communities to build those relationships so that if we're ever in need, we can call on them for help, and vice versa. Right now, we have about 12 full-time employees and 20 part-time employees, and we will expand that as needed. And they have been trained by our excellent Chief Joe Miller. They know how to keep us safe. We spend $2.5 million out of our $5.2 million budget on our police force because public safety is paramount in our village. We have fantastic community relationships. We are touted as one of the few true community policing departments around. We have residents that register their home cameras so that the police can access them when needed if there are break-ins. We handle vacation alerts for our residents when they're away and keep an eye on their home. We also have organizations like our Community Emergency Response Team. We had our first one here in December, and our second program is starting in April. These are residents that come out to help in case of a disaster or an emergency. We have our citizens on patrol that work with our police department. See something, say something is what we believe in. And supporting our police department is something we've done over the last 16 years. I've been a part of it, and before that, when Mayor Carolyn Baca was police commissioner as well. We will continue to support the police.
Candidate McCarthy, same question. How would you support the police department?
Thank you. As a municipal attorney, I have a lot of experience with police departments. I represented some very large ones to some smaller police departments that are not unlike the Village of Palos Park. The Village of Palos Park, in regards to the police department, may have some constraints just because of where the Village of Palos Park receives its dollars from, which is a property tax-based municipality, in order to grow additional programs, add additional police officers if that's necessary for the future. So oftentimes you have to look at what are additional resources that you could utilize to help your police department. We have a wonderful police department. We have an amazing leader in Chief Miller. We have wonderful officers who are on the street, but we may not have enough full-time officers. We may have the need to increase the amount of full-time. When talking with Chief Miller, he mentioned to me that we spoke about the part-time officers and the turnover that we have with some of them, which makes sense because a lot of those part-time officers are younger officers that are looking for full-time jobs elsewhere. We do have a lot of retired officers as well. So one of the topics of concern to me is how do we retain some of those part-time officers to potentially stay longer? What can we do to keep them within our village after we train them? An additional way to support our police officers is looking into the community. We have some amazing individuals who work for some of the state organizations here who have offered assistance with the police department, helping them receive grants, whether it was from EMS or other police-affiliated agencies. And in order to, it was just a direct connection with those residents to have them help facilitate some of those grants to be able to add additional safety measures for our police. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Milovich Walters, same question. I did. Oh. Let's hear it again. I'm sorry. Okay. Our first speaker will be candidate McCarthy for this question. Why was it important to sign the Fair Campaign Act paperwork? And if you didn't sign it, why did you make that decision?
Thank you. The Fair Campaign Act paperwork is inherent in any campaign. It is inherent, it's something that is just abided by every candidate. I did not sign it, but it is not because I would not sign it. It was not presented to me by my counsel who drafted the paperwork, and she said it was an optional document. I could submit it after, and I did not. I do abide by Fair Campaign Practices Act. As a municipal attorney, I often guided others on those. There is nothing that I would not adhere to, and there is nothing that I don't believe in that was on that document. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Milovich Walters, same question.
Of course I signed that paperwork. I signed it every time I ran for office. I believe on standing on my own accomplishments. I don't need to tear someone down to build myself up. I am self-made. I believe in fairness. And I do believe that there have been posts on social media that are under the control of my opposing candidate that could have been taken down or addressed that were racist, biased, and bullying. And I believe that is one of the tenets that you're not supposed to violate of the Fair Campaign Act. If I'm mistaken, it's still not the right thing. Believe in fairness, and I don't need to play dirty. Thank you.
Next question for candidate Milovich Walters. How would you work to balance Palos Park's traditional character with economic growth and development?
Well, Palos Park is a little gem nestled inside 11,000 acres of forest preserve. We have bike paths and numerous outdoor recreation activities and opportunities. I was part of the group that brought our bike paths, the CalSag Bike Trail, to Palos Park. Finding a way to make sure that when we develop that, especially the Western annexation, because that is one of the few areas where we can develop economically. As I said earlier, in with the character of Palos Park. No big box stores. We don't want that here. That's not us. We want quaint, different, unique items that we might find interesting and have it look the way Palos Park should look. Surrounded by green space, not a lot of signage, no bright lights, just quaint, like the rest of Palos Park.
Candidate McCarthy, same question. How would you balance Palos Park's traditional character with economic growth and development?
Thank you. It's probably no surprise that we don't have a lot of space within the village of Palos Park for economic growth and development. There are a few areas within the village that have been designated on whether it's the LaGrange Corridor Plan or one of the other documents controlling potential growth within the Village of Palos Park. That said, our Village of Palos Park is one of the most amazing green spaces, environmentally sound communities around. In order to keep that, it is important to have some strict guidelines and rules. For example, when you do have new construction or you do have building of residential homes that are completely torn down, you can have education for those builders in regards to non-invasive species, trees that should or should not be planted, have an education that could be brought to the residents with cooperating programs that we already have resources in our town, such as the University of Illinois cooperative program. We have master gardeners that are within our village residents as well. So building and economic development and growth does not mean that you give up the green environmental space. It does not mean that you have to change how that looks. You can enhance it and have economic growth work with it. Thank you.
Next question to candidate McCarthy kind of follows that. How would you propose to increase and maximize business presence in existing areas, such as the Jewel Strip Mall at 131st and LaGrange?
Yes. The Jewel Strip Mall is of one of concern to me. Those properties have been vacant for a period of time. The rents are a bit higher there. I have looked at them myself than some of the other areas around the Village of Palos Park. In order to fill the space, there are some creative efforts that have been done by other communities in getting, whether it's young entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, shared space within them, but there needs to be a plan specifically for the 3, 4 right now as it exists, depending upon the build-outs for those spaces along Jewel. Jewel has some restrictions in regards to what can go in. It is a marketing plan that needs to be developed by our village that we are lacking in regards to how do we bring new businesses to those spaces. What does the Village of Palos Park offer to entice villages to come there? How can we make sure that it's businesses that are there, whether it's owners, residential owners that want to open up a business, how can we maintain and keep them there for a long period of time? I've talked to a number of the businesses that are in the strip mall right around the corner from the one that you mentioned. And while some of them feel like they have a lot of support from the Village of Palos Park, others do not. So it's going and asking the existing businesses, what do they feel may help us fill even the vacancies that are the neighbors around the corner?
Thank you. Candidate Milovich Walter, same questions. How would you propose to increase and maximize business presence in existing areas?
Thank you. Well, we do have our building director who works with our economic development team to reach out to different businesses, different opportunities to try to entice people and businesses to open in Palos Park. One of the tricks with Palos Park, we love our green space, we love our open space, but any big type of business, any business that's been tested already, drops a pin where they're going to open their business and draws a circle 5 miles around. And then they see how many people live in that 5-mile radius. And it turns out, Palos Park, we don't have a lot of people in a 5-mile radius. We like it that way, but it makes it challenging to find business owners to fill the space. Right now, the old McDivitt's is going to be opening as Great Lakes Brew. We found somebody, the old owner of McDivitt's, that decided he wanted to try again in a different way. When we were trying to fill other restaurant spaces, we had talked with Rosebud, but they decided to go to Lamont because there were more people close by. So it is a challenge, but we are always actively pursuing business opportunities of people to bring in. We also have worked with, they tried to have a chamber of commerce in Palos Park. It was a little small, so they went with the Palos Chamber. that includes all the Paloses. And finding support there has been challenging, so I would hope to help them develop those relationships a little better and see a little more support there. Also, we're starting up again the highlighting of our businesses, where staff goes and videos the owners so they can talk about their business, and then we share it on social media and our e-news to remind our residents that those people are there and to shop locally. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, candidate Milovich Walters. How would you work to improve Metro scheduling in Palos?
Well, Metro scheduling is always a challenge, especially in Palos Park. The southwest route, has always lacked the number of runs as the northern suburbs. However, they've recently brought back weekend scheduling, and that is improving all the time. There are talks constantly to see when we can add more runs of trains, but it all depends on ridership. We haven't had a big increase since COVID because a lot of people are not going back to work daily. But it is steadily improving, and there is hopes that we will be adding more runs, but as of now, more weekends have been added.
Thank you. Candidate McCarthy, same question. How would you improve Metro scheduling in Palos?
Yes. Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm not sure we have control over the Metro scheduling in Palos Park. I, for one, would be all for it, but we're not the only stop along the line. I am very happy that within the last, I believe, month and a half, we have an increased number of trains for the evening schedule. There are now 3 trains that run after that 5:50 train during the weekdays. Those have, what I've been hearing from residents and my own family members who take them, that it has been a real added benefit. Outside of increasing ridership, which I'm not certain that we have the ability to do each individually ourselves unless you have a need to go downtown during the week, I'm not certain how we would increase the number of trains heading in and out of Palos Park. They have added some express trains on the southwest line. There are obviously some very populated towns to the south of us that I think could, depending upon their need, increase the Metro trains added to the schedule, which of course Palos Park would benefit from. But I don't believe that Palos Park itself would have control over increasing those trains, whether weekday or weekend. I know my family would enjoy a weekend train every now and again, and my neighbors, but I'm not certain that that one is within our control in isolation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for candidate McCarthy. What would you do to promote the saving of trees in Palos Park?
Yes, the saving of trees in Palos Park. Just as so many other people have said and the neighbors around me, I moved here for 3 things: plush horse, the horses, and the trees. Trees are part of who we are. They're part of Palos Park. They're in our village's emblem. They're everywhere you look. In regards to saving the trees with development or building on your property, we obviously have the tree bank. We have some strict codes and rules in regards to what you can cut down, the size of it, whether you have to pay, a property owner has to pay into the tree bank if they cut down certain trees. All the trees have to be reviewed prior to building and development. So we have very strict guidelines and codes there. I think what is also important, though, is education. Education is key across the board with so many things that impact a municipality. And education is key within the discussion of our plants and trees as well. Teaching residents what to plant, what may not work, what shouldn't be planted is very important to the Village of Palos Park. And this is where, again, I mentioned earlier, developing those programs with the resources that we have at hand, whether it is the Illinois Cooperative Program, whether it's individuals within our own committees, such as we have a tree body committee and a beautification committee, both which have vacancies on it, which would be great if we could fill those with individuals who want to participate and make certain that the trees are protected going forward and we do not see more cut down for parking lots or other things that businesses, residents may do to their own properties. Thank you.
Candidate Milovich Walters, same questions. What would you do to promote the saving of trees in Palos Park?
Well, we do love our trees, that is true, and we do have it on our emblem, and we do believe in preserving our green space and our trees. It is important to educate about what indigenous plants we should plant, should know what trees will grow well in the soil that we have. Some areas are clay, some areas are more sandy. Sometimes that's why that big old oak tree tips over, because they're in sandy land. Our tree body is a wonderful organization. Dan Foster, our arborist, is always available to a resident to educate them, to discuss their trees, to determine what would be good to plant. When we have our Arbor Day festival or meeting, we give away seedlings to the residents. We've given away hundreds and hundreds of trees for people to plant on their property. When people do need to cut down trees to build their home, we don't like it as much, but we do have the tree bank that is paid into. And that allows the village to plant more trees in rights of way, or to bring trees to be planted on people's homes in the right of way, so that they can benefit and we can add back to our tree base. I'll remind you all that what I mentioned early on, Palos Orland Conservation Committee, first group I joined in Palos Park, all about preserving green space and our trees, and that is what is near and dear to my heart. So we will continue to do that in Palos Park.
Thank you. Next question for candidate Milovich Walters. Crime is not a big problem in Palos Park. What measures should be taken to keep our community safe?
Well, crime is not a big problem in Palos Park. Sadly, though, it seems that from the city, crime has been pushing its way out to the suburbs. We've noticed more car break-ins and things like that. So part of what we've done is our officers patrol as they should all the time. But we have our citizens on patrol that also go out and drive their neighborhoods or walk their neighborhoods and report to the police if there is anything suspicious going on. We also engage with residents when they have their ring cameras or security cameras. If an incident is happening, they share that footage and allow our officers to review it to determine how to proceed next. But relationships with our neighboring communities have been really important. When there are issues that come up in Palos Park, we can call on Palos Hills, Palos Heights, Orland Park. They will come help, as we do help them. But the biggest part of helping deter crime in Palos Park is when you see something, say something. It is important to just call 911 when you think something's going wrong. Our officers have an amazing response time. They come and they will check everything out. And Chief Miller is always creating new training and new plans for our officers to find new ways to better engage and prevent crime from happening. Thank you.
Candidate McCarthy, same question. What measures would you take to keep our community safe?
Wasn't there more to that question, or is that?
The intro was that crime is not a big problem in Palos Park. What would you do to keep our community safe?
Thank you. We are blessed to live in a village where we can have a statement like that crime is not very prevalent in the village of Palos Park. And that goes to all of you sitting out there. It is a testament to our police force, the chief of police, Chief Joe Miller, as well. It also goes to our surrounding communities. Our surrounding communities have great police departments themselves, which work with us. We all work together. We all help each other out within regards to keeping the eyes open. But Palos Park is a thoroughfare to other towns. We have some major streets, LaGrange, that head south into Orland and further. It's a pass-through to head back into the northern suburbs, onto 55, 294, McCarthy Road, the Cal-Sag, Route 83. We have individuals coming from all over different areas. Keeping residents' eyes open, maintaining police on the streets. At any given time, we have 3 patrol officers throughout the village of Palos Park. 1 in the western annexation, 2 within the other Palos Park proper. It's important that those police officers are seen and visible, which they are. We can see them on our streets often, but maybe there's a need to increase, depending upon the time of day and what's happening around us, additional patrol throughout the village of Palos Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for candidate McCarthy. How would you use social media outlets to present your position regarding current and future plans for the village?
Can you repeat that question, please?
How would you use social media outlets to present your position regarding current and future plans for the village?
Yes. Social media is an incredibly powerful tool for municipalities, businesses, residents, to get information out, to educate themselves, to collectively bring together individuals who may not talk on the street as it be, or walk by one another where we do have 1-acre properties and you may not see everyone as frequently. Getting messages out by the utilization of social media can be very important and very powerful if used correctly. Social media is only one tool in the communication arsenal for residents of the village of Palos Park and greater. It should not be the only tool used for residents. Not everybody accesses social media. Not everybody accesses the World Wide Web as it's known. So to rely on those only for mechanisms to disseminate information is not enough. I've heard from a lot of residents over time that they don't look to those. They don't know what's going on within the village of Palos Park because so much of it has moved to those functions where that seems to be the first distribution, whether it's email, social media, or the internet, a website. But there are other mechanisms that need to be used within our village, whether that is traditional mailers that some people used to receive, from what I'm told, the village of Palos Park. It's a way to communicate outside of that only electronic medium.
Thank you. Candidate Milovich Walters, how would you use social media outlets to represent your position regarding current and future plans for the village?
Well, like my opposing candidate said, it's not the only way to reach people, but it is a very powerful one. We do have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the Village of Palos Park, as well as our recreation center, and we encourage people to join and follow notifications on those platforms. We also do have e-news that you can sign up for. You can opt out of receiving your village newsletter in the mail or your recreation brochure in the mail by asking for e-news. but you can still always receive it in your mailbox. But using the social media as one way to reach our community, we have staff that take the time to craft their posts, to make sure they're tagging necessary people that they feel might see it and share it. And that way we keep spreading the word for those that are on social media. But it's right, it's not the only way to reach people. And that's why we still have the traditional mailers, if you'd like them, e-news, and our website is filled with all the information. And we will continue to build that social media platform while we continue to do what is tried and true. Thank you.
Okay, next question for candidate Milovich Walters. How would you, as mayor, work with council members to provide a cohesive unit for the benefit of the village?
Well, for 16 years, I've been working as a cohesive unit with my council members. We may not always agree. We are all individuals. And we have had times when one-on-one discussing issues that we're not seeing it the same way. We always work it out in an agreeable manner. It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to be disagreeable. We have always approached our job as council members, which, mind you, only pays you $100 a month, so it's a volunteer position. We've approached it with a teamwork mentality. We have been a fantastic team that have supported projects for each department, make sure that we know what's going on within each department so that we can give our 2 cents, our opinion, review what's going on, and come up with what we believe is the best answer for the residents of Palos Park. Our goal is always to work together in the best interest of all residents of Palos Park, preserving the life that we know, the character that we love as a group for the benefit of the village. Thank you.
Candidate McCarthy, same question. How would you work with the council to promote a cohesive unit?
Yes, thank you. Collaboration. It's incredibly important in any village, in any municipality, and especially on the board. But first and foremost, before comes the collaboration within the commission and the mayor, comes the collaboration with the residents. The residents' voice is what leads the democracy. The residents' voice is why those commissioners and the mayor are there. The residents are the reason that those that sit on the board need to work together. They're not there for their own opinions. They're not there for their own voice. They're there to listen to those who are on the street, who they may talk with, who come to the board meetings. And that has been something that I've witnessed lately that's been forgotten. When I attended a board meeting on February 27th, and I was questioned with a head nod and eye roll just upon saying my name, just upon saying my address, by one of the commissioners that sat on that board. I did not feel that there was a cohesive, collaborative effort between myself and the village of Palos Park. I didn't feel like there was a cohesive and collaborative mechanism for me as a resident to talk. The board needs to be an example for the residents. It was lost that night with me and many other residents who have witnessed it since. It was an unfortunate event that evening, and one that will have to be corrected by a strong leader who can educate make certain that the board is cohesive in listening to the residents.
Thank you. Next question for candidate McCarthy. What would you implement? What would you implement for recreation for our younger residents?
Yes, this is a fabulous question and one I am incredibly passionate about. The recreation program within the village of Palos Park has unfortunately had some challenges over the last couple of years. We were without a village director since 2020, and it's had a significant impact on our residents within the town who would normally partake in many of the activities there. We now have a director. It's been exciting to see him kind of running with new programming. But some of the things that are still missing that I remember from when my children were young were the things that brought together the residents, that created bonds with one another, that created not only a team within the children, but a team amongst the parents. It's those programs that were the soccer club that was from 3 years old till 5 years old before the children could do AYSO. It was the T-ball group that was for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds before they could do PBO. It was the basketball program that had Palos Park teams that would go and play Palos Heights and play Palos Hills teams and Hickory Hills who were a part of it. Those teams that created and brought children together who may not attend necessarily school together, and parents who may not live on the same block, but that they were able to come together, build relationships, and get to know one another that, for my family, are still in existence to this day, and my children are no longer partaking in those youth programs because they have outgrown the T-ball age and the 3 and 4-year-old soccer programs. Those are something that I would like to see back in the village of Palos Park.
Thank you. Same question, candidate Milovich Walters. What would you do to implement recreation programs for our younger residents?
Well, it is true that our recreation director transferred jobs in February of 2020. 1 month later, the state was shut down. We had been close to hiring a new director at that time, but instead we had our 2 assistant directors run the programs that we could. We offered programs in a safe way, including online programming that we created. That year we offered an outdoor concert with safety protocols in place where we painted squares on the grass of the village green so everyone knew that they had their safe bubble to sit in. In 2021, we started back with more programming with our events: chili cook-off, breakfast, brunch with the bunny, hot dog day, concert in the park, and we ramped up our programming in accordance with safety protocols. In 2022, we began the search for a new director, and it took some time. And at that time, our 2 assistants were offered positions that advanced their careers, so they left. At that time, our village staff stepped up. They stepped up to keep our programs running, to keep our events moving forward. That is what a great team does. That is the environment that we've built in the village of Palos Park. It took time also for residents to feel comfortable coming back to classes, especially seniors and the very young. But we chose to take this opportunity to reimagine our rec department. Moving forward with our new director that started in September of 22, we're on the verge of hiring our new assistant director. We have soccer programs going for the young kids this spring, which is exciting that those classes are filling up. If you don't sign up, we can't run programs, and that sometimes takes a couple times to try before they'll run. The playground that we started in 2019 is being installed August of 2023 with the tennis and pickleball courts being redone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Milovich Walters. The minimum for water usage is 6,000 gallons. Would you support lowering the minimum usage for elderly and single people? This would save money for those on a fixed income.
It's not a popular position, and we've examined this before, and we do re-examine it every few years when we do our water study. In order to afford to bring the water the long distance that it has to go in Palos Park between homes, our prices seem a little high sometimes. And there is a minimum because it pays for the infrastructure improvements that are necessary, our televising of our sewers and our water system to look for cracks and fissures so they can be fixed before there are leaks. That is what the money goes to doing. We calculate those minimums based on the number of users. And if you're in a more densely populated town like Palos Hills or Palos Heights where the homes are closer together, you have more users. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because that's why we moved to Palos Park, our homes are more spread out. It takes further distance to get the water to you. We do look to see when and where we can reduce, and if it's ever possible, of course, we would try to reduce for the elderly or the single family, single residents. But it's not always possible. But if it is, we will make it happen.
Thank you. Candidate McCarthy, same question. The minimum for water usage is 6,000 gallons. Would you support lowering that minimum for elderly and single people to save money for those on a fixed income?
Sure. If it made economic sense after a study and review, then that may be possible. I haven't had access to the complete reviews of the current administration through the past years, but upon being mayor, I'll put that down as one of those things to look into, because it always makes sense to do what would be in the best interest, especially of the seniors within a community that are on a fixed income. So if lowering a possible expenditure for them is possible, it would make sense across the board for the village, then it could be something that's looked into. But to say right now, if that's something that I would support or not, without having the complete access to the data and the research, I don't think that's possible to make an absolute conclusion other than saying if it made economic sense to do so, it would be.
Thank you. Next question for candidate McCarthy. Do you think we should have littering fines in Palos Park?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you think we should have fines for littering in Palos Park?
Fines for littering in Palos Park. So do I think garbage is a problem in Palos Park? Well, I'll tell you, it is when I walk every single morning. I have, my husband and I participate in our own Rid Litter Day every single day of the week that we walk. And it's amazing what you see on the streets of Palos Park. We take different routes every day. We go to different communities every day and find many interesting things. We recently, though, made a profit on walking, picking up garbage. We made $21. Maybe it would be best to give that money to the village and donate it for, use it to put garbage bags or gloves out for others who wish to pick up garbage as well, outside of just the one day a year, which is equally as important then. But should there be fines? If you see someone, are we talking about the police pulling over someone and writing them a ticket if they see litter on the ground? Other communities have it. May not be a bad idea. Is that how we want to use the police force? Now, I have seen some very large garbage bags thrown out of vehicles. I know people that live on 119th Street who have large bags of garbage dumped in their yard in the forest preserves. And if there's a way to help remedy that from happening, then we would certainly look into the best alternative. And if it is something like a fine, possibly. But until it's kind of like catching the moving vehicle, right? That would be tossing it out of the window. Not certain that that is feasible.
Thank you. Candidate Milovich, Walter, same question. Should there be fines for littering in Palos Park?
Well, yes, I would love to have fines, but it is an enforcement problem. It would mean catching somebody throwing the bag out of the car. I have long participated in Red Litter Day. I used to take my Girl Scouts to pick up garbage on that day, and other days, of course. But our beautification committee, they go out, they clean up the areas around the entrances of our town, pick up the garbage they see there, plant the flowers. But it is a community effort. It is taking pride in Palos Park. Unfortunately, those people that drive through that don't live there, maybe they're the only ones that are littering. And hopefully those are the only ones that are littering. I hope our Palos Park residents don't throw their trash out the window. If fines were able to be enforced, we've discussed it, we've attempted to implement that in the past, and it did not amount to much of anything because you have to catch them in the act. Sounds like a good idea? Don't know if it could work.
Thank you. Next question for candidate Milovich Walters. What is your take on cyberbullying, and how would you plan to prevent cyberbullying within the community?
Cyberbullying is a hot topic for the last few years. You see it all over social media. They talk about it on TMZ and every other platform. It's something to be taken seriously. Cyberbullying, especially with young people, can be very damaging to them. They take it to heart, they're hurt, they retreat. It is a horrible thing. One of the ways that we can combat cyberbullying is reporting it. You report it to the platforms, but if you report it to our police department, they have people that can pursue those avenues to find out who's doing the bullying, see to putting a stop to it. They would also follow up with wellness checking on the person that was bullied. We need to work as a village. The expression, it takes a village to raise your family, that's true. And the village of Palos Park is every resident's village. So we would work together with law enforcement to ensure that cyberbullying was stopped whenever we saw it happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, candidate McCarthy. What is your take on cyberbullying, and how would you plan to prevent it within the community?
Certainly. So cyberbullying appears to be a collective problem that may be addressed not only within the village, but the local area school districts as well. Cyberbullying is not an isolated thing within a municipality, but is often talked about more in relation to the younger children within the community and the school districts. One of the things that I could and will have an impact on, though, is bullying in person, which to me is a hotter topic right now for the village of Palos Park and its residents than cyberbullying. When residents are bullied, as I was, and told to shut the hell up in a board meeting, snickered at, which has been happening here tonight by some of the individuals in the audience, those are things which need to be addressed. Those are things that we need to stop. We need to come together, not be in opposition. We need to find a way to communicate as professional residents and adults. The bullying in person, especially to a woman, a mother, a minority, is painful to me. And it's an embarrassment to the village of Palos Park and all those who live in it. It is not something that any of us should take lightly. I will be an example to prevent that with proper education and proper tools for training those elected officials and those which sit in power, those who sit in silence too. Because silence is an acceptance of what's happening around you. So while cyberbullying is one mechanism and one thing we see happening. Bullying in person is something even more real that has touched the residents of the village of Palos Park and myself.
Thank you. This is going to be our final question. I guess the fact that our sign fell down means it's time for the final question. Kind of combining two questions. What makes a successful mayor, and why do you want to be the mayor? This is for candidate McCarthy.
What makes a successful mayor? A successful mayor is someone who knows that they only have a voice because it's the residents who give it to them. A successful mayor is one who brings together individuals to create a cohesive community and always looks out for the best interests of not only the neighbor next to them, but the neighbor across town, the senior, the child, the individual who may live by themselves or have a large family around them. What makes a good mayor is having open ears and being the individual who others want to talk to share their ideas, to grow a vision for the community. Being a mayor is not something that I take lightly. I've been asked 3 terms now to run for mayor. Now is the right time for that to happen. Now is the right time for me to be that conduit, to be that voice for all of you sitting out there, to help your ideas come to fruition, to help your visions for Palos Park be taken into the future, to bring back the things that are important to you that I hear, more concerts happening in the park, more collaborative efforts within the organizations that grace our village, such as McCord, the Center, Palos Fine Arts. Being able to have more cohesive bonds with each other and allowing everybody to feel comfortable, welcome, and respected within the village of Palos Park.
Thank you. And for candidate Milovich Walters, what makes a successful mayor, and why do you want to be the mayor?
Thank you. Well, I'll start with why I decided to run for mayor. After 16 years of experience working as a commissioner with my fellow council members and working side by side with Mayor John Mahoney and learning what it takes to be a mayor, I felt I was ready. My youngest had graduated high school now. I feel that the experience and time I have available to do the job. As mayor, it is imperative that you do listen to your residents, that you are accessible to your residents. That's why they can come in and make an appointment, just pop by and visit, call you, email you. I get emails from residents all the time, happy to respond to them and address issues and meet in person and talk. That is the way that you build bonds within your community. The other thing is knowing when to step in. Sometimes when things are going awry, it's best to watch how they play out. If everyone is acting as an adult, but maybe having childish behavior in the moment, but we're all adults, sometimes it's best to watch and see when it's appropriate to step in. Sometimes stepping in to things lights up the fray. The other thing is that there needs to be trust that your finances will be handled properly. And I've proven that with having more than 50% of our operating fund in reserves. You need to know that your village is secure with public safety, your finances, and the health and happiness of your residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we have our closing remarks, I'd like to thank our candidates for participating and thank the audience for their kind attention and their good questions. Thank you. We will have our closing statements, 2 minutes each, beginning with candidate Milovich Walters.
Thank you. Experience matters. Experience is vital for doing the job of mayor, and the ability to work as a team for the best interests of the residents is crucial. Only once in Palos Park history was there a mayor who had not been commissioner first. And that was in 1951 when we had approximately 850 residents. Now, with nearly 5,000 residents, the job has changed. Being commissioner first is imperative to doing the job of mayor, so that on day one I am rolling without the need for training wheels. I have more experience than anyone who has ever run for the position of mayor of Palos Park. I have 16 years experience as commissioner, 4 years before that on a village board. It takes a mayor to know a mayor, as I am endorsed by every living mayor of Palos Park: Mahoney, Baca, Moran, Jeans, and Lager. My experience is relevant and abundant. My ability to work with a team is proven and effective. This is why I'm qualified to be your next mayor of Palos Park. I am Nicole Milovich Walters. Thank you.
Candidate McCarthy, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. First off, I'm going to thank my opponent for helping you see why change is needed. Things have been done too long the same way in the village of Palos Park. I do not know why there is a thought that it has to be done a certain way. That is not democracy. That is not the democratic way. We do not tap people on shoulders to become a committee member or a commissioner or a mayor. Now, I always like being number one, but I will take that second mayor in the history of the village of Palos Park position and gladly serve as mayor, not having been a commissioner before, because I do have the experience, and that has been shown. I have more experience than my opponent. Not only have I worked within the village of Palos Park, but I've worked in countless villages, municipalities all throughout the Tri-County area. That in itself has given me a wealth of information in regards to golf course redevelopment, writing ordinances, zoning laws, not cutting down trees. I have access to all those professionals throughout the Chicagoland area that I can pick up with a telephone call and reach out and get some advice. On top of it, when I'm mayor, I've heard there's been 60 years of experience right now on the board. We're only losing 14 years of it. 16 years, I guess. Maybe I misstated there for my opponent. So we'll still have 44 years of collective knowledge. The staff will be remaining the same. That doesn't change. I'm not going to need training wheels. I'm ready to get on a unicycle and ride my way around Palos Park, because that will be a sight to see if I was on a unicycle, now that I think about it. But it would allow the village residents to come out and talk more collaboratively by seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks again, candidates, audience. Have a good evening.